Hey guys, and welcome back to Weekly Wine Comic Time. This is episode 3. My name is Christine.
And I'm Niko.
We'd like to thank you guys for listening and coming back for our third week. So I'd like to thank anybody who follows us on social media. I've tried something new this past week where I took an inspiration from a comic book that we read and I actually recreated a character from one of the books. So if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram or even Niko, I'm going to try to do this week to week with our posts of the podcast and just kind of have an inspiration. I do have a really big intrigue in makeup, and that's a passion of mine. So this is kind of fun for me to create and take inspiration from the other passion that we have, which is comics, and kind of mesh them all together. So if you do follow us on social medias, then that's something else that you can kind of look forward to, as well as just this podcast here.
Yeah, and maybe we'll put some of the info in the show notes for you guys, like my Instagram account and Christine's Instagram, if you did want to follow us and see those pictures that we put up. Or also I might start doing other comic-related posts at some point, depending on what happens with the show here and kind of what I decide to do as things move along here. But yes, thanks again to all the listeners, all the feedback we have received so far, and the people that are giving this a shot that aren't even comic fans. Hopefully we can make one out of you if you do listen to this show and you like what you hear.
Yeah, exactly. It is a well-rounded medium that kind of anybody can listen or get into, not just listen to, but enjoy reading and visually. It's a very good, well-rounded medium to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're having a great time doing it. I'm having a fun time doing this. I look forward to it now, yeah.
It's kind of our hump week tradition,
yeah.
Our hump day tradition. That it kind of gets us, in the middle of the week, something to look forward to get us through. And on that note, something to get us through, we had 2 bottles of wine today. Both from the brand Bodacious, not Bodalicious.
Bodalicious would be a cool name,
It would be,
yeah.
right? So Bodacious, one was their Pinot Grigio, and the other was a Moscato.
Mm-hmm.
I think Niko enjoyed the Moscato quite a bit.
I did, yeah. I did. Yeah, the Moscato was good because, most of the time, the Moscatos are pretty sweet. And I felt this was tasty and refreshing, but not super sweet like most Moscatos.
Yeah, it was still sweeter, just not ridiculous.
Yeah, because I've had some Moscatos that were super sweet. This was sweet, but nothing over the top.
Yeah.
And it kind of still, it stayed sweet, but yet refreshing. Sometimes all you get, I find, is the sweetness out of a Moscato, depending on
it's almost like syrupy.
Yeah, but this was a pretty good mix, I felt. That's why I especially liked the Moscato. And then transitioning over to the Pinot for me afterwards, which was also good. It kind of was it felt more like a traditional Pinot as opposed to the Moscato, which was kind of like a surprise for me. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, what'd you think of them?
I really enjoyed them both. Again, I think that the Moscato is very light and kind of very easy to drink. And then the Pinot, you definitely know that you're drinking like a wine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in the past, the only Bodacious wine we had was their simple red or simple white wine. Smooth white. Yeah. So this is a first for us trying these out today. And I think for both the bottles together, we spent just under $22. One was 11 something, one was 10.
Yeah.
So
very cheap, very delicious.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
very summery.
Yeah, it was very good. So those were our wine picks for today. Then, and we did quite enjoy them as we're fucking dying here in the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a special time for podcasting because if anybody knows, sometimes sitting in a room tucked away doing these type of things with headphones on can become kind of a nuisance.
Buckets.
Yeah, if you do hear any noise in the background, it's because I do have a small fan on me right now, so please bear with us if the quality is impacted as a result. But if I didn't have this, I'd probably die right about now.
This wouldn't happen.
So anyways, without further ado, if you want to get into the comics, Christine?
Yeah, sure. So this week we've actually read a bunch of the same comics, so we'll actually have more of a discussion rather than just one-sided conversation.
Yeah, Christine, she's catching up in between each show now on her massive stack that she's been behind on of kind of newer releases that we've picked up over the last couple months. So hopefully we'll eventually get to the point where majority of our books will kind of actually read on the same night and get to talk about together, and you'll kind of get opposing opinions on them, as well as the individual books that only like I read or only Christine reads. So, because that is, originally kind of how we used to do it, but then at some point, life gets in the way. Christine fucking fell like 3 months behind.
Niko works all the time, so he'll blame it on me, but it's him too. His availability isn't always there. Anyways, to start it off, I'm going to start with Deadpool number 15. The writer is Scotty Young, and this is drawn by Nick Klein and Scott Hepburn. So I believe this is Scotty Young's final issue writing Deadpool.
Yes.
And I thought this was actually a pretty good ending. You kind of have a whole spoof on, I guess, The Bachelor, which I don't watch, but I'm assuming because he has a daisy and he's handing it out to somebody who he wants to murder them. And then you kind of go through, he goes to hell, he talks his way out of hell because he's a blabbermouth, and he kind of gets told into the future and sees his daughter, what she can become with, what's his name again? Good Night?
Yeah.
What a lame name.
Really, well, that's the point, right?
I know, it's such a lame name. Yeah. But Good Night and his daughter Ellie go and fight crime.
Yeah, which is one of the only thing I think, the main thing that Scotty Young had picked up on from Jerry Duggan's run prior to his was the daughter thing. So that was like one of the, that was one of the main things that carried over from his run into Scotty Young's, is that he actually made it
where his memory was lost. He wiped his memory, but he has a kid and he didn't remember, and now for one issue only, he remembers, and then took his memory away again. So, yeah, I enjoyed this. I gave it a 4. I thought it was a pretty solid ending. It had its comedy points, but at the same time, I found Scotty Young's humor was kind of repetitive for this character. Generally, I find Scotty Young is a very solid writer as well as a phenomenal artist. But I found this one, he broke the fourth wall in every issue the exact same way. Deadpool would talk to the writer, so
kind of insulting himself, in
like the same fashion every issue. So I kind of thought it was very formulaic and just kind of very
repetitive.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. But then I did think it was a funny callback with the stuffy underwear at the very end.
Right. Yeah, I actually gave it the same rating as well. I also gave this a 4. This was a culmination of everything that he kind of had done on this run, with a lot of the characters that we had met during this run coming back in this issue, and kind of, putting a final word in about this character. But you actually hit on something I didn't really give much thought to, is the fact that I guess he did get repetitive. I think some of the issues, the best ones, were probably earlier in this 15 issue run. I think towards the end he kind of ran out of steam a little bit, because I really actually enjoyed his take on the character at first, but then I think he may have run out of fun ideas somewhere along the line, because at first he was doing a lot of 1 issue, 2 issue kind of little stories that were kind of fun, interesting takes on the character. Stuff that's been done before, but the humor was spot on, and the artists throughout the whole run, though, the artists have been both good. Scott Hepburn and Nick Klein, and both did a great job on this book, and it was nice to see all of them together on this issue. Not only revisiting a lot of the characters and themes that we've
seen throughout
the run, but both the artists as well drawing it. So I give it a 4 as well. I won't go down as one of my favorite runs of Deadpool ever, but I think it was pretty good for what it was. And Scotty Young is excelling as a writer, but I think even for him, he kind of maybe got bored with the book towards the end, because you can tell he definitely was rehashing some of the same jokes and ideas, like Christine said. But it's hard to follow Jerry Duggan's run. Jerry Duggan did a 5-year run on the character.
His run was huge.
And and it took itself very seriously, which Deadpool books normally don't do. So it was good. But Scotty Young did a good job. I gave it also a 4. All right, so my first book here is Daredevil number 8. This is by Chip Zdarsky and artist Lalit Kumar Sharma. who is the artist that's been the same artist, I think, on the last, 3 issues ever since Marco Cicchetto has been taking a break, and he'll be returning in a couple of issues, thank God.
Yeah, you haven't been loving this art.
3 issues in, this one didn't bother me as much as the first couple did, because it was such a shift from Marco Cicchetto to this artist. And in this particular issue, and, I guess ever since he kind of jumped on the book, since Daredevil has kind of not been out superheroing, and it's been basically just more Matt Murdock just being a human
living
being.
Life.
Yeah, exactly. His art is definitely better suited for that. Like this,
and more action.
Yeah, absolutely. This issue had a lot of people sitting around a table talking, which was fine for this artist. I didn't mind it. And 3 issues in, like I said, I've gotten a little bit more used to this art. At first, it was a little jarring, and I didn't enjoy his style. I still don't love it. I'm not gonna say he's one of my favorite artists ever, but I think that he's doing a serviceable job, and it's good for this particular story that's being told right now. So that's definitely kinder words than I had for it when he first jumped on the book, just because I like Marco Cicchetto quite a bit. This particular issue was interesting because Chip Zdarsky's just continued to still explore avenues of Daredevil and Matt Murdock as a person that I really haven't seen done before, which again is saying a lot for a Daredevil comic, because I've read a lot of Daredevil comics, I've read a lot of good Daredevil comics, and I think he's doing a great job overall. There was a great scene with the Kingpin in this, and kind of they're still exploring the fact that he's a mayor of New York, but since Daredevil's kind of, hung it up, he's kind of also trying to go legit, but he's still a criminal at heart, as you see is evidence in this issue, but so are many politicians. So it's kind of an interesting avenue to go down. And again, he's kind of playing with some of the morality, some of the right from what's right and what's wrong, even in this issue, like he did with the Punisher issues. He's also exploring it in this, because in this issue, he accidentally accepts a dinner invite and sits down with a known crime family. So then before you know it, Matt Murdock, just trying to be Matt Murdock now, not Daredevil, is in a argument at the dinner table with a known crime family in Hell's Kitchen about, his perspective on things and their perspective on things, and how they don't think they're doing bad by doing, what they do and trying to survive in this crazy world that we live in.
Exactly.
And he's like, no, you're outright criminals. No matter what you say to me, you're you can't fucking...
This is wrong. It's black and white, and what you're doing is against the law.
Right. And then somewhere in the conversation, though, you're like, I don't know. They're both making pretty good arguments. I was just like, he made a compelling argument.
You're like, fuck.
Yeah. I mean, so that in itself made this issue very interesting for me. So I give it a 4.5. I couldn't give it the 5 because this isn't the normal type of story I like to see in my Daredevil comics, nor was this, like I said, the artist I was looking forward to on this title from before. But for what it was a pretty solid, well-rounded issue, and and it's another great chapter.
Yeah, so I've almost agreed. I gave it 1/2 a point lower than you. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
So yeah, I do agree. The art was not my favorite, but I do like the whole aspect of him. Well, the one thing you didn't touch on that I thought was funny was that he's a retail creep.
Oh, yes. You're right.
That was quite hilarious. So he finds this woman at a bookstore who he's previously talked to, and he just comes in and is like, "Hi, I'm in the neighborhood. Just wanted to say thank you." And she's like, "You are straight up a retail
That's
creep.
right. That's how he got to the dinner.
But come to my apartment for dinner with my husband." It was just an odd...
Yeah,
kind
because
of
she's like,
invite.
"Oh, we usually do big dinners. I live just upstairs on top of this store."
"Oh, my husband. Oh, I smell pork. Are you cooking pork?"
Yeah, because she's very of the neighborhood, and she seems to be the only one that's not involved in crime in the family.
Yeah, she's the one married in.
Right. So the fact that Matt Murdock was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that," and yeah, she
walks
straight up
into this whole crime family. He's like, "Fuck."
But you're right. That was a hilarious part where he actually comes to the self-realization. He's like, "Oh my god, I am a retail creep."
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. I missed out on that one. That was a great scene. Yeah.
But yeah, everything else you touched upon was perfect. But yeah, I don't know, with the art and everything, I did give this a 4.
Okay.
Not to knock any of the enjoyment really, but yeah, it just, I don't know, the ending was a little for me, with just, oh, we found your mask. Or
Right.
Daredevil's mask,
Right.
not your mask. But,
well, there's somebody masquerading
No, I
as,
know,
as a
exactly.
Daredevil of sorts, like a kick-ass type
Exactly.
move, right? So
just kind of following suit kind of thing. A copycat, if you will.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so my next book is Hit Girl Hong Kong. This is issue 6, but this is part 2 of 4 of the Hong Kong run. So this one here has one nasty ass woman who is just vulgar and crude, and she chops off a bunch of penises.
Yeah.
And for some reason, she's in a robe, and she has to derobe before cutting off
that's
all
what I
the
didn't get.
penises.
I was like, is she gonna have sex with all of them and
That's
demoralize
what I thought
them?
at
Because
first, but no, she's got clippers and she just cuts them off.
I didn't know what they were going for at that point, because and I guess that was the point of it, because it was just like, because she's a big fat woman, so I didn't know if it was just like, oh, you guys, like, look at me, like, but that would
You
be
have to
demoralizing.
look. Well, I think it was more of the point where it's like, you think penises are the reason why you're where you are,
Right.
but look, I have all women parts.
Right.
But then at the same time, you've had people comment saying that she's had a sex change, that everybody had thinking that this person has always been a male when in fact she's always been like a female.
Right.
So it's been an odd kind of run, because then when you heard that she had a sex change, you're thinking like, did she somehow attach a penis to her?
Right.
But then you find out that it's just she kept them in a box, but she made sure that all the men lived, so now they're all eunuchs, and so that they know, like, they'll never forget this whole situation and who's boss.
Because these are all like different triad type gangs, like type of thing, like
working
Chinese
in Hong
mafia,
Kong.
Hong Kong, the Chinese mafia thing.
So she just wants to make sure that she's known that she's, king bitch here. And then on the other end of things, you have Hit Girl, who ends up getting tied up by this other like gang of teenagers, which by gang they don't actually mean gang, but just a group of people protecting each other. And you find out that they were actually trying to save her and give her kind of care when she freaks out, and she wakes up and she's tied up and she starts kicking ass.
It's like the Riverdale gang.
Yeah, exactly. And so I gave this a 4. I actually thought it was pretty good. I didn't think it was great, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a step down from the first issue. I mean, Daniel Way, who wrote this, I'm not a huge fan of. Goran Parlov, though, I'm a huge fan of his art, so it's conflicting right from the get-go for me for this this current run with the Hong Kong storyline that's being told. Because I love one part of the creative team and the other one I didn't. And I was actually quite impressed with the first issue because I thought the pacing was really well done, and I thought that there was less story, less dialogue being told, and a lot of it was done through the art, so it worked great for me. This one, though, was very overridden for me. Like, that whole first scene where she's explaining, like, everything that she's, like,
What's
about.
going on?
Yeah, I was like, it was, like, one fucking page, and she, like, brought everyone up to speed. And I know sometimes writers, like, that's maybe a good approach, you think, about fucking summing everything up about this character. But it was just, like,
Not
why
necessary.
why is she telling everybody here her story before she cuts off their penis? But not even in like a thoughtful way. Like, it wasn't like
it's just blatant.
Yeah, it wasn't like, you guys did me wrong and this is like, now I'm gonna do this. Like, it was like that, but she gave like her whole fucking history.
Yeah.
Like, things that like she didn't need to tell those guys before she did what she did. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they all know they're enemies there.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you know what I mean? Like, so
they're all rival gangs.
yeah, so for me, it was very, very overridden throughout the issue. Like,
Fair.
he obviously was having fun writing that character, and I think he just way overdid it.
Went into it,
So for me, I gave it a 3.5 because of that. Like, I'm not, like, again,
That's
I'm
fair.
not a huge fan of Daniel Way, his writing whatsoever, but because it's this character, because it's this art team, I'll be sticking with it, but I don't know. I just hope next issue there was some fun moments in it, but yeah, I'll have to see what happens next time. So Batman 75. This starts off the City of Bane storyline, and this is written by Tom King with art by Tony Daniel. So if you recall, maybe from the last podcast, I talked about like one of my last books was Batman and how I really, really didn't enjoy it. Overall, I really have enjoyed Tom King's run. Sorry, this is art by Tony S. Daniel and Mitch Gerrits, a longtime collaborator with Tom King. Yeah, he also did some pages in this. This was a little bit better because, like, now Tom King, they've announced at the end of this year he's going to be leaving the Batman title, so he kind of has to wrap up the current storyline he's doing before it breaks off into this miniseries they're doing with Batman and Catwoman, which is going to, I guess, continue the story about him and Catwoman that he started in this title. So, but this main storyline here has always been about Bane. Like, everything's pointing back to Bane. Bane's been orchestrating this huge plan for the entire run, which I'm not really a huge Bane fan. So for me, it's just like whatever. Like, I've enjoyed his run for all the different types of things that have happened in the moments. But Bane at the center of it all.
I've never found Bane to be like a mastermind type of character.
Well, if you watch the movies, like, he's supposed to be, because, like, he comes from, like, the same kind of place, like, that Batman trained, like, right? Like,
no, I know, but it just seems like a big kind of steroid-esque type of oafish.
Depending what Batman movies you watch. Yes. And the older ones, for sure. Like, the Arnold one, he's definitely a roid freak in that one.
Yeah.
And ridiculous. But, but if you look at, like, the ones, I think it's Nan Parbat or whatever the fucking place. Where's Ra's al Ghul from? I think that's where he's from.
I think that's it.
But basically, wherever he trained... that's where he kind of, that whole thing that was in the Christopher Nolan movie, that was much more interesting, like everything in that, and there is things like that come from the comics, but ever since then, like even going back from the Nightfall storyline where Batman got his back broken and all this shit by Bane, and this is basically a revisit of that. Oh, we broke the bat, we we took care of him, don't worry guys, like he's taken care of, we've broken him, because like no one can apparently break Batman because he's fucking Batman. And I get that. I get why Tom King's revisiting it. There is some interesting aspects to that type of story. But for me, he's not a very exciting character. Like, for me, I'd rather see a fucking Riddler story. You know what I mean? Like, something like that. Like,
I agree with you on that.
Like, you don't need to do Joker all the time. But I like some of his other roles.
The Riddler,
like, there's way more different...
Even the Penguin can be very intriguing.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a crime boss. Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, for me, like, a Bane storyline, I'm like, eh. So... this issue, the way it was set up, again, I don't love Tom King's approach as of lately in these last few issues on the title. As well as he's done it in the past. It's just, hasn't been doing it for me. But by the time you got to the end of the issue, I kind of figure out where we were and what we were doing. So if you stick in with this one, it will pay off and ultimately point us in an interesting direction. Basically, it appears at the start of the issue that Gotham has been taken over, and essentially that is what has happened. Bane has now taken over the city. The bat is broken, and basically ever since like we departed from the last issue from with him and his altercation with his father, we've kind of jumped to the future now, and we're in a state of Gotham being run like the Gotham police is basically being run by the Riddler, the Joker, and fucking Hugo Strange. So, like, every bad guy that's been involved with Bane in order to take down Batman is basically, pulling the strings now and everything. So, yeah, so it's pretty interesting. I mean, that... once you kind of figure out what's going on, because at first you're like, what the fuck is going on in this issue? Yeah. Like Tom King has done other times, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. Then it was pretty satisfying. So I gave it a 4, and the art was good.
Okay, cool. So my next book is one that you read last week, and this is Avengers number 21. This is by Jason Aaron and Jason Masters. This is the hot tub issue, which our last episode was actually named after. Yeah. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because you got a pretty good gist of it last week. Basically, the Avengers are having a hot tub party while cleaning up the city in this hot tub.
Yeah, post War of the Realms.
Yeah, right after War of the Realms. The only one who's still doing his due diligence is Black Panther. He's like the only one that's still doing actual work.
Well, because he's super sneaky in this.
Yeah.
Like, he's got all this kind of like team set up.
Yeah.
And like, he's basically he's working in the shadows compared to everybody else on the team, right? Like everyone else is kind of like, enjoying their time together while Black Panther's fucking around behind the scenes,
doing
right?
things.
Yeah.
Well, even in War of the Realms, like he was still, like he wasn't very
Present.
involved.
No.
Like he was you knew where he was.
Yeah.
But not.
He was kind of delegating tasks to people,
Yeah,
but he wasn't
from
really.
the shadows.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And one of my favorite parts was when She-Hulk arrived into the hot tub with the crowd, and Thor and Tony Stark are super pumped, and Carol Danvers is trying to hide
Ghost Rider?
Yeah, Ghost Rider's eyes, and of course Cap has to hide his own eyes because he's just too good. I just thought this was a really fun, enjoyable, just lighthearted kind of read, and I gave this a 5.
Wow. So the art didn't bother you?
No, I got kind of over it. It was just fun.
Okay.
I just kind of went for the fun of it. The art wasn't my favorite.
Yeah.
But just the story and the fun of it was...
I loved the story and had a lot of fun with it, but the art killed that one for me. We talked about this.
I know.
But yeah,
I was kind of over it.
I'm right there with the story for giving it a 5. So, but yeah, the art really hurt me. But anyways, Uncanny X-Men number 22, another book that really hurt me. No, this was good.
It's deep and personal.
Well, just because a lot of X-Men died in this issue, I don't know if he's just basically taking the characters off the board for Jonathan Hickman because his issue comes out next week. So Jonathan Hickman's going to be the new writer on the X-Men. I talked about it on the show so far a little bit, probably last time we spoke about this series. And essentially... he's wiping the board clean. Like, he's a writer that has, like, a distinct vision, and the way he kind of writes is that he has all the pieces on the board in front of him. Like, he knows where... he's like one of those guys that you go into the office, he's got the string all over the board. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, in the middle of, like, investigation. Yeah, exactly. Just, like, everything's connected somehow. Like, this is the type of guy, like, that's the type of writer he is. Yeah. Like, he kind of has probably outlined his whole vision of his plan for the story already prior to even taking on the book. So I don't know if this writer basically killed off a bunch of them because he has no use for those characters during this run, or if he's essentially just getting rid of them so he can bring them back
and wipe the slate clean just so he has a free...
Yeah, because like it seemed like at the end of this, like just like in Deadpool, you got to put all the toys back in the box. Some writers, they know that nothing they do on their run is going to stick, and it's not going to matter whatsoever. So let's just all wrap it up very nicely with a bow at the end, and be like, "Hey, listen, this was my time on the X-Men. See you later." Like that's basically what this felt like.
Okay.
It was a good run. It was a decent run. This is written by Matthew Rosenberg. We got Salvador LaRocca on art, who's not my favorite artist, but he shines here and there. I think he does this, again, a serviceable job, and he does, some stuff is better than others that he does. Sometimes it's kind of a little bit photo-referencey, so I don't love that. Although on this X-Men book, it wasn't as bad. When he did the Star Wars book, I definitely felt that a lot. What I didn't like was halfway through the book, there was like several pages where guest artist David Messina came in and he fucking killed the flow of that certain scene because his art was wildly fucking different than Salvador LaRocca's. So I didn't really love that part of it. Otherwise, the story was basically about Cyclops once again whining, coming to terms with he's a leader, but it's hard being a leader, and have I made the right decisions as a leader, and why does everyone hate me as a leader? That's always fucking Scott. I hate fucking Cyclops. I don't hate him, but he's always like, I'm pro Wolverine over Cyclops. Like when those two teams divided, that was the best time in X-Men comics ever. When Wolverine's like, I'm just gonna go open a fucking school, and then Cyclops,
that was wonderful.
Yeah, Cyclops was like, I'm joining forces with Magneto, and I'm just like, fuck you guys. I'm fucking joining Wolverine. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways. This was basically Emma created this Cerebro type helmet and basically used her psychic powers to make everybody in the world forget that mutants exist.
Oh.
And then Cyclops turns around after Wolverine says something to him, and he blasts the fucking device that's basically making everyone forget that mutants exist. And he's like, I'm used to being at war with everybody or some shit like that. I'm just like, and then it just ended. I was like, what the fuck? No. So I knew it wasn't going to end on the fact that no one remembered mutants, because I'm like, well, that's not going to work for Hickman. But instead of the bad guy thwarting them, which it seemed like at some point he was during this issue, they accepted the fact that they're okay with being at war with the human race constantly.
Yeah.
Which is just like an X-Men trope that goes back to the beginning, which is fine.
Forever, yeah.
People just hate on fucking scumbag mutants. I get it, but it's just like, you know, like, it just, like, to tell this fucking story and even, like, approach that and then give a whiff of the fact that, you know what I mean? Like, oh, maybe we'll never remember these mutants, and then just take it away right at the end like that. I was just
pull
like,
the carpet from underneath you.
I knew it wasn't gonna stick, but it was just the fashion that they did
Why
it on.
do it?
They literally went out on the last page with a fucking one-liner about it,
oh,
and I was just like, come on, like, it was just like, it just felt like a colossal waste of time, and I knew it was gonna kind of be like that with Hickman coming in. But there was great moments in this issue, though, and great moments in this run. So, like, you know, I did enjoy it overall, and I enjoyed the experience of it. But just as I thought, nothing was going to stick in this. And this is just going to be another fucking forgotten X-Men run when it comes down to it, unfortunately. Anyways, I gave it a 4. Like I said, I did enjoy it. The best moment of the issue was when Jean Grey, who's been alive for a while now, she's never actually revealed herself to the newly reformed team of mutants in this book.
Okay.
So when she finally came back in this, she fucking strolled past Wolverine, ex-flame of hers, right? Wolverine fucking loves her, right?
Yeah.
And Emma, who is ex-wife of fucking Scott, of Cyclops, and fucking makes out with Cyclops, like in the middle of everybody, and then he grabs an ass cheek and everything. Look at this, and then you see Emma and Wolverine just steaming in the background. I was just like, that's great. That was a great fucking moment for me.
It's a big fuck you to all.
Pretty much. Yeah. I'm just like, I don't know why she would have come back from the dead and forgiven Cyclops, and like,
she's horny.
Yeah, I guess, but like, he's such a douche. I mean, you got Wolverine standing right there. I mean, you know, how does Cyclops get both the hot redhead and the hot blonde is beyond me. And Wolverine's just banging anybody. I don't know what's going on with him. He's been dead. He just came back. He can't even get some, apparently. Anyways, 4.
4. So on that note,
you gotta love my X-Men commentary, right, folks?
Yeah. I'll go much more lighthearted with an Invader Zim comic. This is issue number 45, which I still can't believe I've been reading it for 45 issues. This is written by Eric Trueheart, illustrated by Warren Ruchnick. This issue is called Lil Meat Man. That alone made me laugh. So basically, this issue has Zim and Dib and classmates. They have to do one of those school projects where they have to have a baby, like an inanimate object as a baby.
Yeah, like the flower.
It's usually like a bag of flour. I thought you meant like a flower, like a daisy.
No,
like,
a bag of flour.
Or like an egg kind of thing. So so each person had to bring in an inanimate object. It wasn't given to them.
Quick question. Sorry to interject. Have you ever seen that done in real life? Because I've only seen that on like sitcoms and stuff like that. Right? Has that ever been a thing for you in school?
No.
Okay. Me neither. I've never heard of that happening, by the way.
No.
Because it seems weird, like, that anybody would actually even do that.
I think they have, like, actual babies. Like, not real babies, but, like, dummy babies.
Yeah.
But not, like, a bag of flour.
Yeah, it just seems like a sitcom trope that I've seen done like a million times. Where it's just like,
take care of this, or even happened in Shameless, and she left the flour on the train.
I wonder if that has actually ever been a thing. It must have at some point,
because it had to have come from somewhere.
But it couldn't have ever been in our curriculum.
No.
But anyways, go on.
Anyways, so everyone has their random objects. Dib has a real baby wereslug. And every time he speaks, everyone goes, "No one cares, Dib." And then Zim is off in his own head doesn't have an inanimate object, so then ends up calling Gur to create a baby, and Gur brings him a meat baby. So it literally is a glob of meat to look like Zim with like button eyeballs sewed in. And sorry, I keep mixing up their names. And Zim gets so attached to this fucking meat baby, he takes it on all of the adventures to all of the big places in their world.
What's with them and meat in this
series? I don't know. The last 2 issues is full meat. All meat, all the time. They even
That's always been a thing, though. The cartoon.
Oh, yeah, it's been gross. But, like, they stayed away from it from the comics for a bit. But then they go to, like, a place called Delicious Weenie. And they end up riding a weenie dog. Or they steal the weenie car. And then they get... half of it gets exploded by a weenie kuza, a ween kuza.
God.
So, yeah, they end up, that gets exploded. So then Gur has to, like, run, basically, as the back wheels instead of it actually running.
Yeah.
So they're running in half a hot dog car. And, yeah, they go through, like, all of the different big sites that they would have to see, which is the fast food heritage, the world's largest ball of hate, the Gash Canyon, the Chewed...
That sounds wrong.
Yes, it does. Chewed Gum Falls, Squiddy Land, NASA Place, which is now closed and defunded, and Angry Old People. So, and of course, in natural dib form, he ends up having to find Zim, and he ends up meeting this guy who's an FBI guy who he previously knew as some type of supernatural investigator, and teams up with him to find Zim, who they find at the edge of a beach where Zim becomes aware that he's literally carrying around a sack of meat and goes, why? And a dolphin eats it and he walks away. And because the FBI guys were there, but he no longer has the sack of meat, they don't think anything of it. But in the same breath, there's also a guy at the same ledge with a baby made of bread.
Why?
So the FBI guys go after the baby made of bread instead of Zim. It was just wacky and delightful.
Yeah.
And the whole story is being told by a robo-hobo.
That's a pretty nice play on words there.
Right?
Yeah.
So I gave this a 4.5. It was very enjoyable. But after last week's issue, this was not quite as fun.
Fair enough.
So definitely, this is one of my favorites all the time. As long as the art is on par.
Right. Yeah, I guess it really depends on that with the artists that come on there, because it's not usually big name people, right?
No, but the one artist that they normally have depicts the show so well. Like, the art looks like it's from the show, but they've had random artists on there that just takes it all away, and it just removes you from that whole world.
Right. All right, so next up is Spider-Man Life Story number 5. So this is the 2000s, or I guess what do they call them? The aughts? I guess some people call them that.
Oh,
You ever heard of that? Yeah. So basically, this is, a series where they're revisiting different eras of Spider-Man, and writer Chip Zdarsky along with artist Mark Bagley are doing their takes on the different eras of Spider-Man by... he's not doing everything by the book that actually happened in the Spider-Man comics, but he's taking different things that happen and fleshing out his own kind of takes on those things that happened.
But while Spider-Man ages.
Exactly. So, like, they started in the 60s, and then every issue that's come out has been done...
at least 10 years.
Right,
yeah.
and he pulls from storylines that were actually being told during that era in the Spider-Man comics. But then, at the same time, he's doing, like, his own take on those things and trying to make it more sense of it in a real-life perspective type of way. So like the things that are more serviceable to the story that's being told that he's telling of Spider-Man as he gets older. So there's little things that he changes along the way based on ideas of things that actually did happen, and that's what I've really appreciated. Is kind of like it's like an Elseworlds tale, like something like that DC would do, or like a What If that Marvel would do in a sense. Like it's an out of continuity Spider-Man story that's told through the ages where the actual characters
you don't normally see Peter Parker grow older.
Right.
Like he maybe gets to like 25 and then reverts back to his teens. That's the thing,
because it's timeless, right? And then you got a fucking Ultimate Spider-Man where he was a teen. So like so this is a really cool idea. I've been enjoying this series every issue. This is no exception. I enjoyed this one as well. The era that he played in during this time is a little bit before I got back into comics. Like I said, I got back into comics. Dan Slott was writing the Spider-Man, so it was like 2010 onwards. So this time period, I know a little bit about it. So I think he's touching on the stuff that J. Michael Straczynski wrote of Spider-Man, with like there being a spider totem. That was a thing that existed in the comics that Dan Slott also touched on in his run a little bit when he became part of the Spider-Verse and all that kind of stuff. So if you know any of that era, you'd probably enjoy this even more than I did, in the sense that I didn't really have too much like background on that. Like I don't have, you know what I mean? So but the other cool thing that he kind of involved in this was the Civil War type storyline. Mm-hmm. Like he had it so some of the events of Civil War were also happening in this storyline as well, that was happening during this time of comics with Spider-Man. But it was approached in a different way than Civil War was. So when we left it off last issue, it was coming out of the clone era of the 90s for Spider-Man. So Ben Reilly, for anyone that knows Spider-Man, was also a clone of Spider-Man. And at one point in the comics, they actually thought he was the actual original Peter Parker and that Peter Parker was a clone. Well, Chip Zdarsky ran with that and made it so Peter Parker actually did step away from being Spider-Man, which also did happen in the comics, but in this it stuck, and like until like 10 years later, where he's actually stayed with his family. Like he left superheroing and left being Spider-Man for Ben Reilly only to get killed, and for him to have to kind of return back to his roots of being Spider-Man again. So like Ben Reilly was acting as Peter Parker in the real world, while Peter Parker was caring for his family for once, something that he
never really actually gets a chance to do.
That's right.
This makes so much more sense now than when I read it.
So that's what I mean. You need to have a little bit of knowledge of Spider-Man. Not to say that you couldn't enjoy this without knowing all that, but I definitely am trying to help fill in the blanks for maybe some stuff you didn't know.
Well, they kept saying Uncle Ben, and I'm thinking of his Uncle Ben, which confused the absolute hell out of me. And then I'm thinking, okay, it's a clone, but then why are they still calling him Uncle Ben? I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Right. No, I also got confused like that at the start, but then I realized they're talking about Ben Reilly from last issue, who was the clone of Peter Parker during that era. So
I got it as a clone, but I wasn't getting it as Ben.
So basically in this, Peter Parker has to go back, and throughout this whole series, he's kind of been at odds with Tony Stark because he is also another industrialist. Who owns like Stark Industries, and Peter Parker has owned Peter Parker Industries in this, and they've always kind of been at odds. So in this, because of his Civil War act of everyone revealing who they are as superheroes, that's how that kind of tied into this. Not only do they not see eye to eye on business, but they also don't see eye to eye on politics. And while Iron Man respects Spider-Man and everything he stands for as a hero, he doesn't see eye to eye with him on anything else.
Any other level.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and essentially...
He appreciates his intelligence.
Right. That's what I mean. He respects him, but he fucking hates him as a... and he's a foe. So as a result.
Yeah.
So they come to blows in this. I mean, it touches on, like I said, things that happened and occurred during Civil War, and and from there it kind of wrapped up with Peter Parker again taking the helm of being Spider-Man again and walking off with some of the Avengers at the end of the issue. So I gave this a 4 only because for me the earlier issues in this miniseries so far that were wackier were way more fun, and it's probably evident to the fact that the eras that he was pulling stories from were way
crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I had much more fun with those than I did with this, but I still really, really enjoyed this, and I enjoyed reading it. And I think overall, this is going to be a good collection to pick up when it's all collected in the paperback. Yeah, so I give this a 4. The Mark Bagley art is good. I mean, now that we're getting into more modern times, I don't think Mark Bagley's style is something that adds itself to the artists of today. Like, he's more of a traditional kind of old school artist.
Yeah.
He is definitely a Spider-Man artist that has worked on him since the 90s.
Yeah.
So, like, now that we're going into the 2000s, even though Ultimate Spider-Man, he drew that, happened during that era. But once we get to the next time now, like, even though he is actually drawing a Spider-Man book right now, his style doesn't really add itself to the styles that
time
yeah,
frame,
it's not very unique, but he does a great job. I mean, like, he's like your classic old school Marvel storybook type art. So yeah,
I'm so happy you took the reins on this book, because this review of this
that's why I grabbed it out of the pile. Yeah.
Very different. I did enjoy this with the fact that there was a vampire guy in this who I'm not even familiar with. But I thought he was interesting, and how he went after Spider-Man's family.
He wasn't Morbius.
No, I know he wasn't Morbius. I know that.
Just letting you know.
I do know that. He was some weird energy vampire. I don't remember his name at this point. But yeah, he was not Morbius. I'm very well aware of that.
Yeah.
I forget his name.
Moreland,
yeah, that was his name.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just thought he was kind of an interesting take. I have no knowledge of this character whatsoever. I was kind of lost. Like, I understood, just not fully, the impact of certain things.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I did like that. It looks like Spider-Man's son is either dead or very, very injured. By the end of this. But yeah, so I gave this a 3.5.
Fair.
I enjoyed it, but I didn't understand it fully.
Yeah, no problem.
So my next one is Gideon Falls, which is written by Jeff Lemire and drawn by Andrea Sorrentino. This issue was awesome. This actually takes you away from Norton for the first time in a little while. And you're following, do you remember the father's name?
Fred
the father.
Father Fred, he's a priest, yeah.
And you follow Dr. Zhu? Is that how you would pronounce that?
Zhu, yeah.
Yeah.
With an X, yeah.
And, so you follow these two characters more, and Dr. Zhu is trying to find Norton through this whole Black Barn fiasco.
Yeah, these characters have been on a trip the last like 3 issues.
They're still going.
Yeah.
So I found that the art in this is so awesome. The layouts and everything like really add to the fact that this is so goddamn trippy. Father Fred is finding people hung. He's finding, the Black Barn's creature.
Yeah.
I don't know how to depict that, but how they see
He's
them
some
in like
sort of
human
an
form
evil
kind
presence
of,
of some sort. Yeah.
Like a buggy hung mess that was just like a nightmare to be seen in Andrea Sorrentino's artwork. I thought this was great. I gave it a 5. This is a nightmare in a book.
Yeah, you know me. For me, I need a little bit more meat like Invader Zim to kind of grab onto sometimes. Sometimes when they don't give us any answers for several issues, I get a little frustrated. I need a little bit to kind of keep me going. Not that this series isn't highly enjoyable, but I gave it a 4.5.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, and I think for me, though, by the end of this issue, because those two characters finally met on this whole trip that they've been having in their heads that we felt this whole time in this barn, but it hasn't been in their heads. It's just like this barn, this fucking evil spirit that's
Evil
in there. Presence is basically just fucking with their heads this whole time. But the fact that they both met each other now in whatever time or dimension or wherever the fuck they are.
They are, yeah. And they're both trying to find Norton.
Right. By the end of this issue, that I was very happy about that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so maybe now we'll finally move in the direction of these two getting some answers.
Yeah.
And kind of, getting out of this current situation that they've been in.
For
but
sure.
The art is spectacular. I agree. And the layouts and the art and that's for me it's a book driven more so by the art. Not that the story's bad, but we don't know what the fuck's going on half the time at this point, right? So
if
it's just
you didn't have this artist, the book wouldn't be where it was.
Absolutely. So 4.5 for me. Justice League number 28. This is continuing the Year of the Villain event. Although again, other than the one shots that DC's releasing with like these one shot tales about different villains in the DC universe, I don't see the point of this event. Even though Lex Luthor is at the center of it, in a way, like he's always been kind of involved in this Justice League storyline, like that they've, with this newly relaunched series that started a couple years ago, like he's always been part of this book. Mm-hmm. So like for me, I can't really tell you the difference or the point of them kind of slapping this on a book other than maybe sell more books as a result, right? Yeah. So it seems like a bit of a cash grab, but again, that happens in comics quite often. But yeah, this was another solid chapter and issue with the ongoing story of the Justice League trying to find and take down Perpetua, who's one of the relatives of the Anti-Monitor, who are these omnipotent godly beings in the DC universe that were from the creation of time and guard the walls of the universes and all this kind of shit, all this huge concept Scott Snyder type shit where he barely ever lands sticks the landing on it. So we'll see how that turns out, although he is co-writing this with James Tynion. And I did enjoy this. Most of this issue you basically again are focusing on Martian Manhunter and Hawk Girl, who are going to investigate Luthor and basically everything that he's been up to, because Luthor's been luring in Martian Manhunter to kind of, try to find something that he can trust him on. And Luthor, in that Luthor way, he lures him in and then turns his back on him once again, basically. So, that's the thing with Luthor. He's always kind of on the level and kind of also not at the same time. You want to trust him and you want to believe in what he's trying to accomplish.
But he always has an ulterior motive.
Exactly. Classic villain. I mean, So anyways, but when it's not Superman that's dealing with him, it's a little bit more interesting because you've seen Superman deal with him so many times.
Forever.
Meanwhile, Superman, Batman, and the rest of the Justice League are off trying to track down this Perpetua being. Justice League was written by James Tynion. Scott Snyder actually had nothing to do with this. It was just all James Tynion on this one. So usually Scott Snyder co-writes this with him. The artist was Javier Fernandez and Daniel Samper on pencils. Daniel Samper, not so great. Javier Fernandez, pretty awesome. So it was a mix of art I really dug and art I didn't love. So anyways, I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Okay. So my last book for the evening is Silver Surfer Black #2. And this is written by Donny Cates and art by Tradd Moore. And Tradd Moore is a goddamn beast. And the first issue had me a little bit off put because I was not used to his art with this character. This issue was fucking phenomenal.
Agreed.
This, it just hit every aspect that I wanted. Everything is great. Oh, fuck. This was a beautiful goddamn book.
Yeah.
The storyline was really, in depth and, actually very interesting for a Silver Surfer, where he's actually getting infected by a symbiote alien.
Right, which is the symbiote god Null, who Donny Cates also wrote over in his Venom book.
Yeah.
So in a way, he's kind of connecting two different titles that he's doing right now and characters that he's been working on, which is pretty interesting.
And if you see how Silver Surfer looks as infected by the symbiote, oh my god, it is incredible. But yeah, just this whole thing was awe-striking. I gave this a 5, an easy 5. it was beautiful. The story was intriguing. Silver Surfer ends up kind of pushing back all the darkness in the symbiote and kind of expelling it as much as he can, and escapes, and he's following this internal voice that he's hearing, and he heads toward it with the help of his board, and you end up finding out that he is going to the Ego, which is the living planet, and just, it's a fucking trip. I'm so excited to see what the next issue will bring with the art from this planet.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is so beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. I also gave it a 5. Tryde Moore is an awesome special artist who you don't see him crank out too much work because of the sheer detail that he puts into all the pages that he does. So, I agree with you 100%. You hit it on the nose when you said I wasn't too sure about his style for this book for the first issue, or at least I don't think it lent itself, the story that was being told in that first issue, to his art at that point. But this issue, oh man, was it ever this is beautiful, beautiful work, and I give it a 5. The story also good, but for me, it's the Tryde Moore is the highlight.
The art
of this.
steals the show.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, and then the last book we're going to talk about tonight is Black Science 41. 2 more issues to go after this until the series wraps up.
Damn.
This is written by Rick Remender with art by Matteo Scalera, who drew Space Bandits, who Christine recently had done her...
my recreation for makeup.
That's right, that she talked about at the start of the episode there. And he, I guess, finished this series before he obviously started cranking out those Space Bandit issues, or he maybe had those in the can. I don't know. I mean, he obviously is a fast artist. And
he's a goddamn beast.
Yeah, and amazing at that. Another great artist that we both love on this show. So this issue was really, really good. I really enjoyed this. So they kind of jumped ahead because at the end of the last issue, you find out that this evil witch had basically had her main character in like sort of like a daydream. Grant, in sort of like a daydream where he was thinking that his life had actually turned out really well, but it hadn't. Like, it was one of those things at the end where it was like a twisted nightmare of like him realizing at the end, like, no, like this whole time she's actually had you under her spell, and you've been fucking drooling at the mouth, and you're basically thinking that you're in a happy place, but you're not. Now this again messes with your expectations of this issue going into it, because as you go on in the issue and you learn that Kadid, his name's Kadir, his arch nemesis of this series throughout the whole time. Since day one, through thick or thin, whether or not one of them has been helping out the other, they've always hated each other.
Yeah.
Like, I guess his wife cheated on him.
Yeah, whether they work together or against, they just always animosity, always competition.
Right, and no matter what dimension he stepped into, it was always the same. Yeah. Like, they just never saw eye to eye, these two. So you find out, they kind of jump ahead in this, and he's like in some perfect world where everything's kind of modulated for him. Like, he goes to like a very simple like job every day, and it's the same thing every day, and then like he has robots attending to him around the house.
Yeah,
and,
like your caffeine intake is regulated, right. Your food intake is regulated. Like, the robot, comments on his belly. He's eating too much, so he's only allowed like 140 calorie breakfast. It gets very very regulated.
Yeah. I think I used the word modulated. I meant regulated. Yeah. So every step of his life is already kind of taken care of for him, and he goes to he has like a desk job, and he's not like a big science explorer anymore, and he doesn't have like the big adventurous like kind of attitude, and he's just like a defeated man. Like, and meanwhile, he's the only one that's living in this world that realizes that it was never like this. Like, he's the one that he has been left with the memory of everything that happened with the witch, and apparently Kadir is the one that rid the world of that witch. Like he
beheaded her,
and then tricked her into basically reimagining the perfect world for
Into
everyone,
his,
and for Kadir to be basically, the
God
king of it all.
almost,
Yeah, essentially, like he's aware of everything that occurred still with Grant, and in a sense, he's torturing Grant because he knows that this perfect fucking world like is not what he envisioned, even though he wanted it for everybody. Like he's getting frustrated at the fact he knows that Kadir's behind it all, and that he is not the hero of the story, even though he's been trying to be the hero of the story this whole time and trying to do right by his family. But behind it fucking all, you still got Kadir there, you know what I mean? Orchestrating everything that's going on. And it's just like this semi-perfect world, because it's kind of like, it felt like a little bit Big Brother-ish, like the fact that you have these robots regulating everything, and like the fact that, you got to have a good attitude about things, and you can't have too much caffeine, you got to watch your intake of calories. Like it just seems like you can't have any other like
Big Brother's always watching you.
So like, but then in the back of his mind, like he is the only one that remembers this, and he's like shooting off at the mouth to his family about, he lets loose in the middle of like a dinner party about it, and then he's like, oh no, of course, I'm just making up stories, never mind,
I'm just kidding.
So when he goes into work the next day, he gets pulled away to the office of Kadir, where he's just like, what the hell are you doing talking about this? He's like, it's just eating you alive because I'm the one that saved everybody, isn't it?
He's like, I've given you exactly what you've always asked for. You have your family, your wife, your kids,
right?
But you don't have a single thought in your head.
So he gives them an ultimatum at the end, where he's basically like, well, listen, you can have it one of two ways. You could either live this life, continue living this life that's in this perfect world that I've envisioned, knowing
with your family,
knowing that I'm the one that did this for you, or I'll wipe your memory clean. You'll never remember it again, but then you'll just go on again living this life,
and you have no family, no nothing,
right? So completely up to you. And then he basically gets a hold of a weapon and said, nope, there's a third option. So we're gonna fucking see some shit go down next issue. Anyways,
oversized issues left.
I mean, this culmination of this series that at one point was my favorite series being put out, and still one of my favorites, but like in terms of even Rick Remender's output, Deadly Class has surpassed that for me a little bit more than Black Science, just because it kind of got a little bit long in the tooth at some points. Like
it got a little wacky a little bit.
Not only that, I think it was just they could have got to some of the story, like wrapped up some of the storylines exactly. Yeah, it was a little bit drawn out at
but his
certain
art
periods.
Just made it so worth it.
Absolutely, and I still appreciate the journey, and I still love the story overall. But I think that reading it issue to issue with some of the delays that occurred somewhere along the way, I was just like, it's let's kind of wrap it up
you
here.
Lose
so
the
when
momentum
when they said they were wrapping it up, I was looking forward to it because I was like, okay, it's time. It's time.
We're ready for an end.
Yeah. I'm very much looking forward to the next two issues, oversized issues, leading into the last issue being issue 43. With that being said, I gave this a 5. I thought it was great. Yeah.
I also gave this a 5. I thought it was a fantastic issue.
Right. All right. So with that being said, we'll get into our favorites of the week.
I think I started last week, so it's your turn.
Yeah. My favorite of the week is Black Science. It's one of the only 5s I gave to this week, and not only that, it definitely stood head and shoulders above anything else I read. Just because we're kind of wrapping up that series, coming to a close. They've always put out good quality work, and for me, it was a pretty subpar week in terms of storytelling. This is one of those weeks where I wasn't handing 5s out left and right like you guys heard the last couple of weeks. But
so you had a week like me?
Yeah, I mean, there was less books that came out this week as well, but I think it's just that it was one of those things where at a lot of points in people's stories that they tell, they're mostly just these filler issues in a 5 or 6 issue arc that are just progressing the story along, and big story beats don't really occur in it, and there's no character development that actually happens. But for something like this, because they're wrapping up soon, a lot of big things happened in this issue, and like it was quality as always. So I gave this my favorite of the week.
I think I gotta go with Silver Surfer.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah.
I don't know. That just got me when I was reading it. I agree. Black Science was like a close second, but Silver Surfer just kind of
sealed the
just
deal
right
for
over
you.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it, everyone. So tune in next week. We'll be back again.
On Monday.
On Monday, we drop our new episode. So when you hear this, check back, and it gives you a little bit of time for you to go pick up the issues that you'll be reading that week and read them, and then check back in with us. Follow along with us. Yeah, exactly. And also another show you might have to look forward to soon enough is one that I'd like to call Trade Talk, where I'll be talking about some of the trade paperbacks, collected editions that I read every other week. So tune in for that. I'll announce that when that's ready to go up, or I'll just put it out there and let you guys know about it next time. So that'll be kind of me just doing a quick little kind of thing where I talk about a couple of trade paperbacks that I may have read that week. So,
and follow us on any social media. We'll also kind of post any updates or anything that's kind of upcoming. Again, like I am going to try to do some type of a makeup related recreation from a book that we read. Like you said, Niko might be coming out with some other little tidbits from for his own. And then he also has his podcast with JT on the Late Night Network.
Yeah, it's called Late Night Chat, and we are a part of the Late Night Chat Network. This episode is hosted on there on our SoundCloud page, and there's tons of other content on there for you guys from new and old stuff that I've done on different podcasts, so as well as the Late Night Chat with JT. So please check that out as well if it interests you at all.
Yeah, if you've ever caught up with us and you just want some more, there will be lots of content on there for you guys.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.